Welcome to 2 Cents Short of a Dollar, the show where we give our 2 cents and keep it 100. We're your hosts. That's Mo Tiz, and I'm Rue. And the boxing world is set on fire, and we all know why. So Gervonta Tank Davis takes on Lamont Roach for his 135-pound title, and man, the odds makers got this one wrong. The fight ends in a majority draw, very controversial draw. And I mean, as you were watching the fight, I can't lie, this one just felt different, right? It just felt different. So just give me your immediate reaction to watching that fight and just what you made of what you saw.
Man, for starters, this was a fantastic fight. Started off a bit slow. You can tell they was trying to fill each other out. And then as the rounds progressed, especially like around like 4 or 5 afterwards, it started to pick up. Not gonna lie, man. Lamont Roach deserves some credit here. I was wrong. Many of us was wrong. He brought the fight, from his timing, his defense, his conditioning was A1. I was surprised some of the punches he was able to withstand. He even hurt Gervonta a couple of times too. It seemed like he was able to like predict kind of where Gervonta was, like kind of like through a feint, hit him, boom, boom. He'll come back with just another jab or punch, and he was walking Gervonta down, able to, solidify his presence, right? Ring generalship, everything was there. In terms of the decision, terrible decision. I felt like Lamont Roach clearly won the fight, 7-5. And I feel like the fight was clearer than Lomachenko versus Devin Haney. I felt like this fight was, and this is without the knockdown, in my honest opinion. I had Lamont winning 5 rounds to Gervonta Tank Davis. It still was a relatively close fight in terms of margin, but in terms of like the clearer rounds that I felt like who won the clearer rounds, it was definitely Lamont Roach, in my honest opinion. And I'm not even going to lie, I don't want to use the word robbery loosely, but this is probably as close as it get to it. Lamont even said in the press conference that Gervonta told him outside of his own mouth, said, "You're not going to win this fight. They're not going to give it to you." And Lamont was like, "What? Why?" But we know how boxing is. Boxing's so corrupt. This is not the first time we've seen it. We've seen it happen countless times. It was terrible. And for all those saying, "Oh, you got to take away from the champion," stop that narrative. Stop the nonsense. We know that's not true. We know whether you're a champion or not, that does not matter. What matters is if you're a cash cow, judges are more inclined to give it to the cash cow, whether they're a champion or not. Because we've seen champions lose to non-champions who was the more popular fighter. So we got to stop that narrative to justify terrible robberies like this. What about you?
Yeah. So, I mean, on the 7-5, I have to defer to you on this one, which is crazy because I usually will score a fight. And I guess, like you said, I just got it so wrong. It's probably a lack of respect on my part for Lamont Roach. So I would have to just apologize there because I just thought the knockout was coming. And because I just knew in my head and I was so positive the knockout was coming, usually I do the notes in my notes app. I'm like, all right, Lamont won this round, Tank won that round. I was like, Tank is going to stop him. I thought later in the fight, so I did not tally it up round by round. So I have to defer to you on 7-5. But it was a real close fight. But I think just logically watching the fight, there's no way Tank should have won the fight because it was so close that he should have and he should have got a point taken away for taking the knee, which means even if you had it at a draw, 114, it would have had to have been 113 because the D should have been a point deducted.
I agree.
It was just one of the weirdest sequence I've ever seen because he didn't get hit and he just took a knee. So I'm like, what's wrong? Did he hurt something? Then the ref started counting. Then the ref was confused, like, wait, what's going? And the ref stopped counting. Lamont's telling him to count. The next thing you know, Tank goes to the corner. Your corner shouldn't even be getting up on the side during a round like that, and he had to wipe his face. But it was weird because, and don't get me wrong, Tank engages with the crowd and other people during this fight, but this fight felt weird to me. And I might have even texted you like, yo, who was he talking to? Because as he was going throughout the fight, he seemed like visibly bothered by something. And he kept like looking. I didn't know who he was looking at or what. So being honest with you, I don't think he's lying about the reason he took the knee, but it should have been a point deducted. Like, I don't really care what's the reason for taking the knee. A knee is a point deduction. You know what I mean? Like, it's technically a knockdown.
I agree. And you know what this really tells you, bro? That Gervonta Davis really felt so confident coming into this fight, didn't feel threatened whatsoever, and felt so I would say, entitled, that he felt the need that, you know what, let me take a knee, let me go wipe my face off on the side. And when the ref starts counting, no, don't count. You know who I am. Let's continue this fight. Like, it felt as though he was in control. Just he knew what he was worth to the boxing world and the people that had a say so in that fight, that he already knew he could do no wrong. And I think that's one of the worst things in boxing right now. No one should be bigger than the program.
Yeah.
No one.
Yeah, I'll say this though. I want to touch on a point that you made. You said you compared this one to like the Devin Haney, Lomachenko. You said you thought this one was more obvious. I was actually earlier thinking of Haney versus Loma, this fight, and Shakur versus Edwin De Los Santos. And I was just like had the three of them like in a bucket, right? I actually, my personal opinion, and I mean,
Mhm.
it's not too relevant for the long standing of this video, but I actually thought Loma won his fight the clearest, right?
Okay.
But
All right.
but the reason why I was thinking about it is I'm just like, yo, like what is it? You know what I'm saying? Because like you gotta like take it from the. I'm like, are they trying to do another? You got to take it from the champ because I'm like, are you saying like Lamont didn't take it from him? I'm just like, yo, I just don't really, I don't know, bro. It like I said, it was very confusing to me. And I mean, if we're just being honest and keeping it 100, the amount of times I've said Edwin De Los Santos should get a rematch, right? Lamont has to get a rematch. Like you got to rematch this and Tank. If Tank is that guy, you go out and then you prove all the naysayers wrong. You know what I mean?
I agree. I agree. And this, as much flack as Floyd Mayweather get, when there was a close or controversial win that he got on his
Rematched it.
resume, he rematched it and made it clearer the second time around. Castillo, Maidana. So
Mm-hmm.
that showed that Floyd was a throwback fighter.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Tank is going to do the same, because I think he mentioned he is going to give him the rematch, but not next.
So,
I don't
yeah,
know.
that also was strange. That made me feel like PBC kind of already told him like what they had in mind. You know what I mean? It's weird to me. I would think there was like a rematch clause for a champion. Usually, a champion has like a rematch clause. Like I wouldn't think it was a bilateral rematch clause, but I would have thought the champion had a rematch clause that he was like, okay, I got to draw the first blemish on my record. Let me rematch this and right the wrong. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. And then you said that Tank just felt like he was bigger than the program, or at least that's how it appeared. Do you think it's that, or do you think like there was a lot of things going here? Like they tend to say once retirement creeps up into your mind, like you might as well just walk then because like you've already kind of lost a step. And he's been saying it a lot, but I guess we've been seeing him put on performances that we're just like, nah, he's just yapping. But do you think the retirement talks are real? Because to me, in my personal opinion,
Mhm.
I felt like usually in fights we see Tank go to an extra gear, and whether that extra gear would have got him the W here or not, the stoppage or not, it just felt like he never went to another gear this fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. You know what thought kind of ran through my head during this fight watching it? I felt as though when he took the knee, I was like, yo, is he purposely just trying to lose this fight? Does he not care anymore? He just
Mm,
want to go into retirement? Like, you know what? He want to get that monkey off his back. You know, is that what he's really trying to, like, illustrate or kind of express without talking? I don't know. I don't know. I'll have to probably say your guess is as good as mine. That's my initial thought just after the fight. Just look, I felt like he felt like he was bigger than the program, but who knows? Maybe retirement. Maybe he just doesn't care about winning. He don't care about records anymore. He don't really care as much about the boxing institution anymore as much. He's already vocalized that people shouldn't box, right?
mhm.
There's a lot that goes on, and he talks about his mental health and wanting to go to therapy and deal with some of his demons.
Yeah,
So I don't know if that all has a role to play in all this. He was even arguing with his coaches in the corner,
yeah.
Calvin, and so it is. I don't know.
So how about this though? We know Coach Calvin was absent for a lot of this camp, and he was the second trainer, the assistant trainer to Barry Hunter, right?
Mhm.
And do you think that the chemistry just wasn't there? I'm not trying to make excuses for Tank's performance, right? But I do think your trainer makes a big difference. I think about like the Golden State Warriors, right?
Mhm.
Golden State Warriors were like in many cases vastly superior to their opponents, but sometimes their opponents would hang around. They may even be losing, but it felt like Steve Kerr would always be able to say that right thing to
Mhm.
motivate them, to get them to flip that switch, and then next thing you know, they're blowing someone out, right?
Mhm.
So do you think in Coach Calvin's a respectful guy, and a lot of people have respect for Barry Hunter, so I don't think he would try to like overstep his boundaries and step on his toes. So I'm pretty sure Coach Calvin was taking a back seat. But do you think Barry Hunter just couldn't get the response from Gervonta that Coach Calvin normally can get from him? Do you think the trainer had anything to do with what we saw?
Initially, I would say no, but hindsight now, just really sitting and thinking on it, if we're comparing this fight to his previous fights, I would probably have to say yes, right? Because Coach Calvin is a father figure to Gervonta Tank Davis. And we've seen Coach Calvin, talk to Tank in the corner, like, yo, you go out and get it. Like really screaming at Tank. Like bring,
Mhm,
bring that like, ferocious attitude out of Tank. Like you go out and get it. And I felt like sometimes when you are a boxer at a high level, people forget, people always think the boxers are always in the driver's seat, every round. But sometimes the coach is being the driver's seat in that corner. Sometimes you need that intangible push, right? You need that motivation, that extra
mhm,
gear, or like you mentioned, right? We didn't see the extra gear from Tank this fight. Maybe Coach Calvin is the catalyst for that extra gear, and we
mhm.
didn't necessarily get that. So
Yeah,
now thinking about it more and more, maybe the coaching played a part. Maybe it was
yeah,
probably a multitude of everything, and the coaching probably played a role um, in this fight. Maybe it's hard to say.
So, yeah, because like I said, even if Tank went that extra gear, I don't know if it would have necessarily changed the outcome, but like it never looked like the ferociousness picked up. Like he wanted to go after it, right? Even the last 10 seconds of the fight, it's a close fight. He starts backing up, kind of like laughing. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, do something, even if it's to try to like sway the judges at the end or something. But I mean, Lamont looked like he had the better timing,
Yep,
probably the more precise punches.
yep. And he was
Now,
punching with Tank too, which was crazy.
yeah, but it's crazy because everybody said that's what he had to do. So I was like interested in seeing it. But you know how it is when you're familiar with a person. Everyone might have this notion, but you don't because like you're like, I know this person. You know what I'm saying? You see
Yeah,
these guys on the podium and Tank's like, why did you bring your mother here? Like I can't talk how. So these guys know each other. So for me, I'm trying to, like I said, precision, timing. Lamont had him beat. Now, when it
I'll
comes
probably say
to
conditioning as well. To be honest, he had a chin on him that night.
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
maybe. So in power, right? Like so, Tanks usually wins that department. Tonight, though, it was very, very close, very tricky because all right, Lamont's punches like physically seemed stronger, like they moved Tank more. But I thought there was a couple times Tank landed some good shots and it kind of like froze Lamont. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So it's hard for me to judge whose punches were like hurting more because it was different kind of hurt, right? Like a couple times, and this is what I'm saying about the extra gear. A couple times, Tank looked like he was about to pick it up. He had like a good sequence, and I'm just like, okay, Lamont. He kind of froze Lamont there, but then he just kind of like backed off. But when Lamont was hitting him, a couple times he buckled, a couple times he flew back. So Lamont was cracking in there. You know what I'm saying? But it
mhm,
just seemed like the strength was perceived, like
yeah,
differently from both of them. But
that's
Lamont,
true.
like you said, was punching with him. You saw the physical power, but it's crazy. All the things Lamont was doing is what Tank said, and Tank before the fight said this one was going to be very, very hard fight, and people are just like, nah, nah. But he said, yo, he's got good timing, he's got sneaky power. You know what I mean? And then like Lamont showed all those things that Tank gave him credit for.
He really did. I'm not even gonna lie. Like he really showed, and he took a tactic from the beginning, used the high guard and walk him down, take some punches, and he paced himself in the early
Mhm,
rounds. I knew he was gonna pace himself, and I knew he was gonna throw with Tank, but I thought Tank would be able to get him out of there as a result of that.
mhm.
But it worked for him.
Yeah,
It really did. It really worked for him.
yeah.
And I'm not sure if preparation had a role to play in this as well, in the sense of like Tank not really taking his preparation as serious compared to when he went and fought Ryan, because there was this glaring fear there, right? This underlying fear of getting knocked out. So I had to be in my P's and Q's, and my condition has to be up. Whereas I felt like Lamont knew what was at stake, and I felt like he took this training camp much harder or much more serious compared to Gervonta. But regardless, though, credit to and big ups to Lamont Roach for sure.
So if there was a rematch 1 month from now, who would you pick to win the rematch?
I'm still going Gervonta because I feel like the rematch, especially, is going to light a fire under Tank, and I think he's going to take it much more serious. And I think he's smart enough to make adjustments going into that fight.
Okay, okay. I would have to agree with that. Now, can't be avoided, right? So, Shakur says, I'm not even going to do him like the way he would do me, right? But Shakur says that, he would give Lamont a title shot opportunity, right? So, and you talked about the patience that Lamont employed, right? So, what I'm seeing on the internet a lot now is, oh, Gervonta better stay away from Shakur. Gervonta better stay away from Shakur. And, I don't believe in triangle theories, but, Jamel Herring beat Lamont Roach. Shakur had probably one of his best and most dominant performances against Jamel Herring. Lamont arguably beat Tank Davis last night. So, do you agree with it? People say, "Oh, Tank better stay away from Shakur," and a lot of people seem to be jumping off the Gervonta Davis hype train.
I'm not jumping out the window because of this last performance, at least not me.
Yeah.
Because I think that fight had to do a little bit with Gervonta, but also Lamont's performance as well, not taking nothing away from Lamont, but also felt like Gervonta could have did a lot more. Now, if Gervonta and Shakur fight still, I'm still leaning towards Gervonta, obviously because of the power, because just because Lamont can take the power, don't mean Shakur can take the power. Two, Shakur, your styles is different from Lamont.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to stay in the pocket and really exchange with Shakur, with Gervonta Tank Davis? Are you going to throw with him? While y'all exchanging, you throwing with him? Are you willing to do that? Or your style is really keep your distance and try to outbox the fighter? Two completely different styles.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he will have that success just looking at what Lamont did. Lamont did kind of show a blueprint to giving Gervonta some trouble, but you also have to have the intangibles to successfully, execute. So,
Yeah, I agree with all those points because who knows? I guess we would kind of have to see it again, but
mhm.
maybe Javante has issues with patient fighters who can punch with. I don't know, right? But so maybe that is an issue. If we see it happen to him again, then we're gonna have to be like, okay, wait a minute, you this bothers you. You know what I'm saying? Because it makes me think about what was the dude's name, Nakathila, but
Mhm.
then Edwin De Los Santos, when we saw those guys with power, how it made Shakur fight different. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And Tank would be one of those guys with power. So it's like who who would be able to exercise their demons better, right?
Mhm.
Per se, like because I'm sure Shakur will be very patient in there. Maybe he'll force Tank to have to come get him. Who knows? You know what I mean? So would Tank be able to deal with that, or would Shakur be comfortable with the power? Like you said, Lamont fought great in the pocket. Can Shakur do the same? Don't know. So me today, I would still want to see the fight because what happens against other people is not necessarily going to happen against one another, right? We don't know. Maybe Shakur can outbox him from that mid range. Be
Mhm.
patient, make Tank come get him and counter him. Maybe he can punch with him, or maybe the power bothers Shakur, makes him very gun shy. Maybe he can't take the power. You know what I'm saying? Thought Devin Haney could take the power till he couldn't.
Yeah,
And so it's,
exactly.
it's like we don't really know. So for me per se, I would still want to see the fight. I wouldn't say the fight is off, but Shakur offering Lamont a fight. What do you make of that, and how do you think Lamont will perform against Shakur Stevenson?
I mean, I like it, right? Why not? Especially if
Mhm.
Tank is not going to give Lamont the rematch. And also, we'll see. I want to see how Lamont, performs against Shakur, right? Did he just have a great night against Tank, right? Does he have, now I don't want to say have Tank's card, but like, do you have just a piece of the card, right? Where you just happen to just do well against an opponent that you have history with.
Mhm.
So I would like to see how that fight pans out, and I want to see some tricks that Shakur can employ in this fight against Lamont, right? See how, because then I would say Lamont has a similar stature and build to Gervonta Tank Davis. They don't really fight exactly the same, but I'm really curious to see how Shakur will handle that and handle
Mhm.
that test. So I would like to
Yeah.
see it. I'm really curious to see, and then also see Lamont. Like, okay, can you potentially upset Shakur now or give him a run for his money.
Mhm.
You know, maybe you're just like that, right? Who knows?
So one point I brought up in my last video, I'm gonna revisit that with you today. Gervonta fought Hector Garcia, even though he stopped him, never made him hit the canvas until whatever happened where he got hit. Maybe it was the temple. Seemed like Hector was taking the power well enough. Then we see Lamont go in there and take the power throughout the course of the fight. Does it make you even just kind of say, and I know you gave Rolly credit, you said Rolly wasn't crazy, but does it make you think like, is there even more merit to what Rolly is saying when he was like, yo, Tank's getting these knockouts because guys are weight drained?
See, I don't know, because let's talk about the weight drain guys, right? Ryan, Rolly, I would assume. Who else? Who else?
I
Who
think I
else?
think he was also considering Barrios and Frank Martin. I don't
Right.
know for sure. Other than Ryan, I don't know for sure that I would consider these people that, but I'm saying I think these are the people that he was referring
He's
to.
saying, see, and then now I got to look at all the other fighters that he's knocked out at 135 pounds that were like, what's going on? What about the rest of the fighters he KO'd at 135? Were they weight drained as well?
Now
Right? Is
I know
it
he had hand issues, but Pitbull, Pit, he
now
survived it.
Pitbull? You see, that's what I'm saying. Pitbull is an asterisk, right? Because his hand, but even still, to his point, to Rolly's point, I don't think he would have knocked out Pitbull, even with his hands being fully mended and not broken at the time. I just think Pitbull's tough, and Lamont, though, I don't know. See, that's a good one, because like I was expecting the KO, or at least from to like really hurt him and get him up out of there. I don't see any reason why Lamont wouldn't get stopped, because Lamont is really moving up from 130 to 135. They've mentioned that Lamont is bigger than Tank, which showed fight night, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It might be some merit there. I will need more of a sample size, to be quite honest, right? Because I've seen, like, if we look at Tank's career at 135, he's knocked out more people that wasn't weight drained than people that was weight drained. The only issue is we've seen recently, when he starts to kind of employ a rehydration clause, he's knocking them out. So the narrative is there. But like, are we just looking at recent or certain caliber fighters, or are we looking at just the whole amount of fighters? If we're talking about that, then clearly it wouldn't hold up in court, because most of the fighters he fought at 135, he knocked out, weren't on rehydration clauses, right? So I think we'd probably have to see kind of more of a sample size, in my honest
Yeah.
opinion.
So two more points before I get out of here on this one. So Lamont did say the power was real. He said he felt why a lot of people have issues with the power. It's just that he was like, yo, I told you I have a chin. You know what I'm saying? So Lamont validated the power, and I do think the power is real. You know what I'm saying? So do you think that's Lamont being dead honest, or you think they're just still being too friendly with one another?
No, I think he's being honest. I don't think Lamont will. I think he's being honest, because he felt it at he busted up his nose a couple
Yeah.
times. Like he felt the power. It's just Lamont, I think, just wanted it bad. And I'm not gonna lie, Lamont was really conditioned. He was really conditioned. And to Rolly's point, right, or to some other people's point, he was fully hydrated. Maybe you can argue that probably played a role, right?
He
He's
looks
fully hydrated,
strong.
because then to that point, I don't know if Gervonta knocks out Ryan Garcia if Ryan Garcia was fully hydrated. I don't
If they
know.
fight at 140 or something like that.
Oh no, if he fight at one, oh, absolutely, he's not stopping Ryan Garcia. If there was to fight at 140, absolutely not. Rolly might have still gotten stopped, but I don't know about Ryan. I don't know about certain people. So maybe that plays a role. Maybe it's not the whole, you know, final deal, but maybe it's part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So
And my last point, man, when Loma stepped away from the fight, people gave Loma a lot of flack, saying, "Oh, you're scared this, you're gonna get knocked out." But Loma's another kind of patient guy who employs a style where he kind of like looks at your tendencies. That would be a real chess match. So, I mean, I would hope to get Loma back in the mix in the fray somehow, and maybe that's the guy who's coming back. Maybe that's why Lamont's not next. But could
I'll tell you
you?
this: if Loma was in that ring last night, Tank would have, boy, Oh my goodness, it'd have been a funeral today, bro.
Yep.
I'm
I mean,
telling you.
my personal opinion, Loma gives everybody trouble. I think if you put Loma in there with Shakur right now, trouble, Keyshawn, trouble, Roach, trouble, Tank. I think he's just a tough fight for anybody.
Facts.
But after that, and I know he's been away for a while. Do you still? I mean, do you still want to see that fight if we could get Loma back in the mix?
100%. 100%. Now the southpaw, tricky, patient, like you said, but got some pop, probably punching harder than Lamont. And he's really elusive, great footwork. Just probably, if not, he's probably more skilled than Gervonta, and his IQ is probably just as great as Gervonta's, right? Definitely, that'll be a fantastic fight. I'm curious if he doesn't age overnight, that'll
Yeah.
be a great fight.
Okay. I like that. So make sure you guys jump in the comment section. Tell us who you think won the fight. Mo had Lamont 7-5. I said just physically watching the fight, there's no way Gervonta could win because he should have got the point deducted that wasn't deducted. I mean, the referee messed his bread up because they're gonna take him out of a lot of championship fights now. But tell us what you thought about the fight. What was your opinion? Who won? What do you think about the rematch? Make sure you like and subscribe. 2 cents short of $1.